5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Odd Dad Out podcast, where normal is not my specialty. I'm your host, as always, Adam Higgins, the Odd Dad Out, and I'm getting back to basics. This show kind of started with kind of a premise of, I guess my wife would describe this show as kind of my personal audio blog. And I will admit, since I started this show, I've gotten so, waist deep into the podcasting world, and I listen to, some odd 30-something shows a week, and all the way through, too, mind you. This isn't like I'm sampling shows left and right. This is, I'm legitimately subscribed to and listen to 30 different shows in a week. And that's not counting the ones that release on way off obscure times. But as I've gotten further into more and more shows, I've realized that everything I was more shows I was listening to and more shows I was getting into, the more I was absorbing those shows. And you probably could tell I started listening a lot more to film review shows and kind of nerd culture, pop culture nerd stuff. And I realized all that bled through into this show a lot more. And I realized that I went from a show where I could basically start up and I come in with a premise. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have notes laid out for me generally. Maybe a few I wanted to hit this or I wanted to hit that. But generally I just kind of sat down, I turned on the mic, and I knew where I was starting. And it was and I said it a million times before in earlier shows where I came on and the general plan was, here's where I'm starting. Let's see where the hell we get. Let's see how far we derail this train of thought. And that's why the intro hasn't stayed the same for more than, where are we? We're at episode 41. Holy shit. But I've probably had 5 or 6 different major variations of the intro, or at least the start of the show, in 41 episodes. Never mind the first few where it was just, ripped off sound effects from video games. But, I know I sound like a broken record when I keep saying this show is constantly changing and growing, but I realized that I was getting to a point where the show was growing away from what it was at its core. And I'm going to be completely transparent here. In the weeks where everything shifted, where the main focus of the show drifted from me and sharing my thoughts and my perspectives on things into being more of the nerd type stuff here, I saw listenership plummet. Now, I can also say I've taken a lot of breaks, which I'm not especially proud of. I don't like taking breaks from the show. I don't like missing weeks. I remember, and it's coming up on the end of the year. I remember end of the year, beginning at New Year's, my goal was to not miss a week, to not take any breaks from the show. If I had to record from my car, I would record from the car on the drive home and do, those shows again, to not miss a week. And then my sense of professionalism and perfectionism in sound came in, and I realized that I just hate the way it sounds when I record in the car. I just can't do that anymore. I've gotten too spoiled to being in my little home bedroom studio. Speaking of being in my home bedroom studio, you can probably hear my boys shouting and fighting in the background somewhere. And I mean, that's a big part of why it is I've missed time over the last, it's been about 3 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, it's been about 3 weeks now. In part, I mean, and if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and there's actually a Facebook group for the show now, Talk Back to the Odd Dad Out, if you are so inclined. I think just about everybody who's a regular listener is probably already in there. But, I mean, on top of just, you could say the timing of my break coincided with the election here in the States, because I again have to point that out, because honestly, I have more listeners in England and Australia. Australia is huge for me. Thank you, Mark. Mark's awesome. But I will. Yeah, it's not that I'm like one of those people that freaked out about the election. Basically, because, like, especially at the time, I was covering news. I was covering a lot of news, and I was ripping on the news and doing all this, but realistically, immediately post-election, Donald Trump is elected the next president. All of the news coming out was election news. It's like, my wife watches football. On Sunday, Monday, all I'm going to get trying to catch up on news is football news. All of the headlines, it's all crap from football games. Well, immediately post-election, everything was post-election. It was, the world's coming to an end, and all this, hellfire and brimstone and all this negativity. And I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Hillary. I'm not pro-anything. I think they're both a bunch of jackasses. But I'm one of those people who I look at things analytically. I look past the bullshit. I contend wholeheartedly that anything that's said on a campaign trail, anything that somebody says during an election cycle is complete bullshit, because that's what you say to get the job, and then it's what you do once you have the job. Every president, every elected official operates under this, like, you say a lot of shit, you make a lot of promises, and you deliver on some of them and some you don't. But I'm gonna go, people are gonna get mad. I want to get off the election bit. But, one person basically described it. Trump played this election. He pulled this shit straight out of the Obama playbook. Obama was the rock star president. I say was. He's still the president for the next couple of months. But he's the rock star president. He was this young, charismatic guy who got people, fired up and excited. Like it or not, Donald Trump did the same thing. Okay, he's not young and he's not, but he is charismatic, and he knows how to go into a room and own the room and get everybody excited and riled up about him. And he's the kind of guy who loves press. So he would just go into a room and say some inflammatory bullshit, because guess what? Tomorrow, all anybody's going to be talking about is Donald Trump. Congratulations, he accomplished his job. He kept himself at the forefront of everybody's mind, good or bad. But there are enough people, and I will say, there's a lot of fucking wackos out there. And post-election, there's a lot of fucking wackos that are coming out like, oh yeah, Donald Trump's my president. I can call you a blah, 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 and people just being racist dumb fucks. But those people are going to be racist dumb fucks no matter what. They just now think that by Donald Trump being the president, that they're suddenly going to be permitted to be more dumb fucks. I don't know. People are dumb. It's part of the dumb part of being a dumb fuck. But I think I actually told my boss I firmly believe Donald Trump is a complete fucktard. But he's got the job. So what matters now is, what does he do with it? And I will say, if Obama was hope and change, I'm really, I'm thinking Trump needs to be hope and change. He got elected on the basis of people wanted change. He didn't get elected on the backs of racists because, contrary to what people seem to believe nowadays, the majority of the country isn't racist. They aren't. There are pockets of racists. There are pockets of white racists, black racist, Asian racist. If you're traditional Asian, chances are you don't like white people, black people, Native Americans. You don't like anybody but your particular brand of Asian. If you're Chinese, you don't like Japanese. If you're Japanese, you don't like Koreans. That's just, but that is old school, traditional. This group is culturally, racially exclusive. There are people like that in every culture of every quote unquote big fat air quotes race. We're all humans. Some come from different parts of the world with different biological evolutionary necessities. But those things exist in every group. They exist in races. They exist in, in religions. There are people who you can't, if you're Jewish, your mom won't let you marry, or your dad won't let you marry a non-Jew. If you're Catholic, they've got to be Catholic. If you're whatever the hell you are, if you're Muslim, in all likelihood, and I guess it goes to how, extreme are you? How deep are you into your faith? Are you that Christmas, Easter Catholic? And you don't care, and you married a Jewish woman? Why? Because you fell in love with a woman who happened to be Jewish? Or are you a, strict, devout, Buddhist, and you don't feel that you could spend your life with anybody who didn't follow your exact, life choices, and, you couldn't marry a Christmas, Easter Catholic because their lifestyle would conflict with your lifestyle. That's fine. You be you. That's what I'm saying. But there are those people that stay in their group, and there are people that are extremist and are extreme racist or extremely discriminate or whatever. Not everybody's like that. And again, contrary to popular belief, the entire country is not racist. And the entire country is not one kind of racist. If you're going to say America's racist against America. Because there's too many groups discriminating against too many groups. Everybody's not discriminating against the same group. So, not everybody out there is discriminating against black people. There are black people that discriminate against white people. There are Native Americans that will arrest a white dude on the reservation. Let's kick the desk. There are Native American reservations where a white man will be arrested and do serious time for a traffic violation. But a citizen of that reservation could get away with murder on their reservation. That's the way reservation laws work. That happens in every group, in every culture. So, it just got to a point where there was so much negativity post-election, and so much negativity in the news and on Facebook. My wife flat shut out Facebook she's only been after 2 days after the election. She logged out of her Facebook on all of our computers, on her phone. She deleted the apps, deleted all of everything, and completely unplugged from social media because of all of the negativity out there. And my wife is, again, I've said before, the only reason I have a Facebook, the only reason, at least initially, the only reason I started having a Facebook was because my wife built it. My wife got it for me because she's one of those people who lives on Facebook. She lives on Facebook and Pinterest and social media. Probably Pinterest was like the methadone to her Facebook heroin. She was sitting there on Pinterest looking up funny shit and sending me lots of Pinterest silliness and stuff like that. But she disconnected from all the negative social media. Because come on, Pinterest is just, it's neutral. It's here's a funny thing, here's a recipe, here's a crafty thing. So that's what she did. That was her, that was her nicotine patch, was Pinterest. But yeah, granted, I just sat here and addressed the election issue, but I kind of felt like to come on, because by the sheer nature of what I do here and how I talk and how I just kind of express my thoughts about things, I realized that I was not going to be able to come on to the show, turn on the mic, and do anything other than talk politics and talk post-election, because that was all that was in the news. I was digging hard to even find like weird shit to talk about to distract. And I was like, I either had to go extreme nerd and spend hours looking up weird, like nerdy stuff and movie stuff and all this to fill the time here, or I was going to have to go so deep into political crap and potentially bury myself in political partisanry. Is that a word? I don't know. That I don't know if I'd ever get out of it. And yeah, it's just, there's too much negativity. There's been way too much negativity. There still is. I mean, there's all this other stuff going on still. The major flame has died down post-election, but there's still, there's still embers burning. But I had to dial it back, and then we hit Thanksgiving and all this, and yeah, it's been kind of crazy around here between all that stuff going on and just having to stop and recollect my brain. And then it's like I've kind of, again, if you follow me on Facebook, I've kind of had that existential crisis of realizing this show had turned from what it was originally meant to be to where it went into almost a complete nerd rant, like a nerd show. I basically turned into what I was listening to as opposed to what I was. And like I'd said on my post earlier in the week, this, like, somewhere I'm gonna find a balance, but this is kind of what the show had been, was me and my thoughts. And I guess it's to know me. It's me putting myself out there and you learning about me and me expressing myself, because I am a shy person. I am incredibly introverted. You may or may not be able to tell that from the way I express here, but I keep to myself. We don't go out much. If you listen to Mom and Dad cuss, you learn we don't go out much. But yeah, I realized that I needed to get back to the core of the show. And yeah, there'll be nerd stuff because I'm a nerd. I'm the same nerd that was sitting there geeking out over the Wonder Woman trailer and King Kong and all these sort of awesome, crazy things. And it's like, I'm that same nerd. But I'm also the crotchety old fuck who was sitting here railing on paranormal television shows way back when, and makes fun of, stupid people in the news and shit like that. But it's somewhere, I've got to find my happy balance. But I'm definitely, I'm not doing a nerd show. If I were going to do a nerd culture show, I would just do a nerd culture show, and I've considered retiring this show, and the more I think about it, the more I think, fuck, those other ones are a lot of work. And my wife and I actually we've started putting a lot of work into Mom and Dad Cuss. And we're like, I can't do that much work twice a week and take care of the boys and work. It's kind of a running gag. Every day my wife comes home from work and we basically do a handoff. She comes home, there's maybe a 5-minute buffer between when she comes home and when I have to go to work, wherein I drink my night coffee and load up my big thermos of coffee for the rest of my night and go on my way. But pretty much every day she comes home, it's like, just stay home. It's like, just call in. You don't have to go to work. And I get it because we don't really get much time to spend together because of our work schedules. And I just kind of took a jab at her. It's like, yeah, it's like maybe one day mommy will make enough money so that daddy doesn't have to go to work. And she's like, why the hell do I have to make all the money? Like, you're the one who wants me to stay home all the time. It's like, if I'm making all the big money, then that means I'm still going to be at work all the time. It's like, oh, I make all the money, you stay home. Well, guess what? We're still not seeing each other. So you got to figure this out. Maybe if this show takes off and people come back and people decide they want to start paying me for this shit, then I can retire. Or I can retire from working and I can just do this and I can just talk to you guys every day. Because that'd be a hell of a lot more fun than getting up and going out in the world and doing a job. Because I enjoy doing this. I don't like taking days off from my regular job for the sake of it's costing me money. But I don't like taking weeks off from doing this. Because I like... This gets my thoughts out there. This gets shit off my chest. It lets me express what I'm thinking in a I don't know how to put it. It's like in an open way that the rest of the world may absorb. I don't know. That's just what I do. I ramble because that's what I do, and that's basically where the show started, and that's where But yeah, I always liked the start at point A, end up at W. How the fuck did we get to W? And so, I'm going to start working in, and you probably heard it in the last show, and I started it, and I took a break because of a lot of crazy shit. But I'm going to start throwing in some to break up because sometimes I can get a little heavy. I know I can get a little heavy because sometimes I talk about shit and it leads to shit that's a little heavier topic, and that's where I end up fucking talking election stress and shit. But I'm going to start putting in some like kind of, I guess you could say like my recommendations and things that I'm into, and I'm going to start throwing in some promos. Mark over What's Happening with the New Man sent me an actual like pre-recorded promo for his show, and I need to do one for here so that I can send it over to him. I've gotten one mocked up for Mom and Dad Cuss, but we got to get. It requires sitting down and doing it, because we've actually missed a couple weeks there too. We had this whole 3-part holiday planning tips and tricks and stuff, and we got to week 3, and basically it was supposed to be if you're hosting for the holidays, and we got so caught up in Thanksgiving preparations and just work on account of because of the holiday in the middle of the week. I mean, we were both swamped at work, and we got so busy with work and holiday prep that we didn't have time to actually do the show for holiday prep. So part 3 magically disappeared. But I think I'm going to start throwing in some actual like promo stuff and to kind of break up stuff, and so I can kind of collect my thoughts, and so I don't sit there in one continuous rant for 30 minutes. But so I think right now I'm going to take a break right now, and then I'll be right back with something different.
What's happening with the Moo Man? What's happening to the new man? What's happening with the Moo Man? I don't know the song about the new man.
Hey, it's the new man. If you're looking for a new podcast to check out, why not check out What's Happening with the New Man, with the crazy mad scientists from Australia talking about all sorts of things from gardening to cooking to life at home with your kids. What's Happening with the New Man podcast is the one for you. Check it out now. It's on iTunes, What's Happening with the New Man, also on Podbean and all your social media pipes. Make sure you press the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. You don't want to miss this hilarious podcast from Australia, What's Happening with the New Man.
What is the Pattern Family?
Hey guys, it's Rad Dad Chad
J Mills, and Lil Man.
From the Full of Fiber podcast.
Hey, this is Bro from the World of Row podcast.
Hey, this is Rick from Ice and the Face.
This is Eric Mocker from the Mockers podcast.
This is Cyanide from the Little Geek Lost podcast.
This is Greg from the Sports Stands podcast.
Hey, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda from the Unwritable Rant podcast.
This is Nick from the Epic Film Guys podcast.
This is Paul from the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews podcast.
This is Matthew McDonough from the Passersby podcast.
This is Adam from Everyone Has a Podcast.
This is Gareth from the Open All Powers podcast.
This is Knock from the Geek Over podcast.
We're Josh and David from the Scotch and Flicks podcast.
We are you, podcasters coming together in a community to help one another grow. So follow us on Twitter at Podern Family and use the hashtag Podern Family in your tweets and retweet other people who do the same. Podern Family, where great podcasts come home.
So I'm back, and you may recognize that Podern Family run from the last show. This is a group I've really gotten into on Twitter. And you may have noticed just about every time a show comes out that it's tagged with the hashtag Podern Family, as the promo said. It's just kind of a really cool group of indie shows, and it's just a really cool community I've really gotten into. And I've started listening to a good number of shows through that group. Most notably, the Epic Film Guys, who I'm pretty sure are backing this whole community. But Epic Film Guys and Pre-Recorded Live, which I will credit those two shows with completely diverting the flow of this show to what it had kind of turned into. And just because they're great, like, pop culture and film shows. And if you are into, like, the pop culture nerd stuff and the weird news or into movies, I highly recommend both of those shows, Pre-Recorded Live and the Epic Film Guys. I've gotten to be really, really cool and pretty good friends with Matt over at PRL. And I will say between Mark, What's Happening with the New Man, and then Matt over at PRL, these guys have probably been like my leading, like, kick in the ass to keep going. It's like when I feel like I need to maybe step back from the show, maybe I need to consider stopping, they're the ones that sit there and give me a kick in the ass and it's like, no, you need, just suck it up, you can keep going. It's, yes, there's a 300,000 fucking podcasts out there, but you don't get anywhere by quitting. And if you give up, then your message doesn't get out and people don't get to know you. And they didn't say any of this, but I absorbed these thoughts from them. I used my magical abilities to absorb these thoughts from them. But yeah, and then the Epic Film Guys, these guys just put together a great film show. And yeah, it's just, what else is there to say? They're just kind of cool guys that put on a great show, and they're entertaining as hell. And they give really good film reviews and talk about stuff like that and aren't all uppity. So yeah, I highly recommend those. But I'll probably be kind of plugging in more of the show because there's a lot of the shows in that community that I've gotten really into. So I'm definitely, I'll be pushing a little bit more of these as time goes on. But that's just because I'm into them and I want to share what I'm into with you, and putting in these little promos for these other shows helps me break up the tension, I guess. Sometimes I get a little too excitable and sometimes I just need a break. But I think this week I'm just going to cut it off short with that. Again, because I kind of threw away anything that I had kind of prepared this time around. It's like I had some new stuff. I had some jackass of the week. I've always got those things on the back burner. But I think this week I'm gonna call it with that, and we'll get into a little bit more of the blurred lines of my rantiness and my nerddom coming up soon. I think I just had to kind of get stuff off my chest today. I think that's what it was. I hope you come back, because I don't know if this is representative of the show or not, but it's where I'm going to be. I'm going to live here a little bit more than in Nerdland, just because Nerdland is hard. It's hard to live in Nerdland. It's a tough gig. I'll tell you what. It's hard to live in Nerdland solo. If I had friends or something, if I had like a friend to talk to, it'd probably be easier to do something like that. But it's a hard gig to carry all by yourself. So until next week, remember to subscribe and rate and review on iTunes. I know I said I wasn't going to do that anymore, but hey, that's where most people find you. So, if you are so inclined, give me a review on iTunes, and if you do, I'll read it on the show, because why the hell not? And subscribe so you don't miss any more shows, and if you don't know where to subscribe, check out odddadout.blogspot.com, and right along the top there's a bunch of little things you can click there that'll help you subscribe on whatever platform it is you use. And you can always hit me up on Twitter or Facebook at odddadout, or just email me odddadout@gmail.com, because I don't know my own email address. And until next week, I'm hoping. I've been Adam Higgins, the Odd Dad Out. Thank you and good night.